Hey everybody, we are going to go ahead and continue on with our Unit 5 text structures. We have done word choice, descriptive, and sequential, and today we are starting in on the third of our 5 types of text structure. And today is going to be compare contrast. So make sure you have your reading notebook, and I've opened this up to my table of contents. I'm going to go ahead and write compare and contrast. And this is going to be on my page 45. So go ahead and get that done. And then once you've written that into your table of contents, flip over and you're going to go to page number 45. So here's our text structure, descriptive, sequential, and that was on page 44. So here I am going to page number 45. So we are going to continue using those 2 books that we discussed or that you've read in class so far. That would be The Bears or The Wolf Island and A Bear's Life. So we've read both of those books so far. And we are going to start comparing and contrasting those 2 books in our text structure. Now we're going to title text structure. And I'm going to have to write this a little small, because I'll move it over just a little bit. We are using compare and contrast. And those are very long words. And contrast. So in case you forgot, this little upside down 4 that I do right here, this is my shorthand for and. So if I don't want to write all 3 letters and I'm writing really fast, I'll do that upside down 4. And that just tells me that that means it's a symbol for the word and. Okay, so when we're talking about comparing and contrasting, as you might have guessed, we are comparing 2 things and we're seeing how they're the same and how they are different. So when we look at it and we're being superficial about this, we're going to say that it demonstrates how, sorry, I was looking at my notes there, how 2 pieces of information are similar or different. How they're the same and how they're different. And a lot of times people talk about these or use a Venn diagram, you know, those 2 circles that overlap, to discuss the compare contrast. And you can absolutely use that if you feel like that works out really well for you. But I'm going to show you a new or a different, not a new, a different graphic organizer that you can use to compare 2 different things. Now that would be my dog in the background. I should have probably started off and let you guys know I am recording these from home today. So my puppy dogs are running around. So if you hear them barking in the background, that's what that would be. So our keywords, and I see a lot of people get hung up on these and stuck on them. You can see either. That means there's a choice. It's either this or that. It's either pie or cake. You can't have both, but you can have one or the other. We can have the word like. That means the same. We could have neither this nor that. It's neither cake nor pie. It is a cookie. That would be a neither. And unlike. How they are different. Other keywords could be as opposed to, likewise. On the other hand, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of somebody do something that, my dog is so smart. On the other hand, he's also stood in front of a window and barked at the blinds in the window. that would be a good use of on the other hand. So it means that he is smart, but every once in a while he does something that's not very smart. All right, the last set of words is going to be although, same, different, and the word differ. Now, this is one word that I see a lot of people miss on a lot of times. A lot of people know different, but differ means basically different. Instead of using the whole word, they might use it. Bears differ from wolves because bears are so much bigger. That's how they are different. So don't let this just, confuse you. Don't let this fool you. If they use differ, what they're meaning is different. How are they different than each other? All right. As always, my loves, if you are stuck or you are not caught up to me, go ahead and pause the video, and then you can catch up with these keywords. Just a reminder, these are some of the keywords. I didn't even write down the whole list the district gave me. There are only some of them. So there can be a lot of other keywords out there that mean compare and contrast. So just because it's not on the list doesn't mean that it isn't one of the compare contrast words. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do our graphic organizer. And a graphic organizer is just a really nice, neat chart or a different way to organize your information so you have an idea of what your information and you can what your information means. You can go back and reference it really quickly. And so what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to start with a really big square. So I'm going to follow this red line all the way down to the bottom of my, hang on, let me move this really quick so you guys can see. Okay, so I've followed it all the way down here to the bottom. It's going to go across the bottom over here. And there's a very faint red line, and I missed it a little bit on this one. There's a very faint red line that I'm going to also use to help me reference where the rest of my lines go. Okay, so I have my nice big box. I'm going to only do one line up here at the top. And then I'm going to make 3 fairly even columns. This one's going to be a little shorter. And then this big giant section, I'm going to split right in half. Okay. And right here I have bears is my first section. Yeah, if you saw something move over here in this section, that would be my little puppy dogs. One of them just brought me his, and wolves is going to go in their section. And one of them just brought me his little monkey and is waiting for me to throw it around so I can play with him. He will have to wait. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about, and it looks like I'm going to give myself 3, 4, about 4 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's make it a nice 5 lines right here. And the first thing that we're going to compare with bears and wolves is the food that they eat. What are the different kinds of food that they eat? And it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines right here. We're also going to talk about their family structure and how they structure their families. And then we're also going to talk about what do bears and wolves do for winter. So we're going to start off with bears. And the first thing that we have is that bears eat all kinds of foods. And I have things marked in my book, in our book, Bear's Life. But I'm going to go ahead and just go based off of memory because it's all through this whole book. So bears can eat salmon. They also eat something called barnacles. And if you don't know what a barnacle is, it's a really weird like sea animal that just, usually you see them on the bottom of boats, but I don't think bears are eating them off the bottom of boats because they don't like people too much. So I suspect these barnacles are stuck on like rocks, and basically they hold on to that rock, and then the seawater comes through the rock or through the barnacle, and the barnacle filters out anything that it finds in there that it can eat as food. That's a whole different story. So bears eat barnacles. They will also eat crabs, eels. The book talked about them eating clams. And berries of all, I'm going to have to write small, kinds. Berries of all kinds. So we have salmon, barnacle, crabs, eels, clams, and berries of all kinds. Whereas the wolves, if we read in the Wolf Book on Wolf Island, they talk about the wolves eating different things. And they have things similar, like seals, or not similar. They do eat clams. So wolves and bears both eat clams. Wolves will eat deer, herring eggs. If you remember, herring eggs are those ones where the wolves bite into it, it snaps and it crackles. And then wolves will also eat salmon. So that's another thing that the bears and the wolves have the same. They both eat clams and they both eat salmon. All right, so the next thing that we're going to talk about are the bears and the wolves and their different families, and what do they, or how do they live? Do they live in a family unit? Do they live by themselves? And so with bears, we read in the book that bears stay with their mothers, or stay with mom for 3 years. And then go out on their own. Okay. Whereas wolves, when we read about the Wolf Island, we had those 2 wolves that had their own families, but then they decided, hey, I want to have my own family. I want to start a family. So they started off and they left and they started off by themselves, and then they formed a family. So wolves prefer to stay with a pack. And a pack is what you call a group of wolves. Occasionally, the wolves will go out on their own. All right, so, they stay with their mom for 3 years. So, sometimes in some ways they're a little similar because they live together when they're quite young. The bears live with their moms like the wolves do, but then the bears go off on their own, whereas wolves generally tend to stay with their families, and occasionally they'll go off on their own, but for the most part they stay with their family. All right, and then this last section, let's see if I can move this up just a little bit more. Like that. This last section is what they do for winter. So everybody does something a little bit different for winter. The bears, as we read in the Bear Island, sorry, A Bear's Life, not Bear Island. Bears fatten up. So they eat lots and lots of these foods up here and hibernate in a cave for winter. So basically when they hibernate, that means they go to sleep for a really, really long time. They basically sleep all winter long. The wolves also fatten up. So that's how they're similar, but the wolves don't hibernate. The wolves fatten up and continue to hunt deer even through the winter. So they don't hibernate. They do still sleep at night like we would, but for the most part, bears hibernate and survive the winter by sleeping in a cave, whereas wolves continue to go out and try and find food and eat. All right, so this is our compare-contrast graphic organizer. We compared bears and wolves, and we compared their food, families, and winter habits, and how they differ or how they survive in different areas and different worlds.